Gaurav Sawant, the Strategic Affairs Editor, now joining us on the story. Gaurav, this message coming in the light of Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to India, and also on the intensification of the standoff that took place on Sunday, and also the constant incursions of the Chinese troops into the Chumur area.
There's a very interesting message in what the Chinese President Xi Jinping is understood to have said within China. The message that's gone out from the government to the army is that the army should listen to the Communist Party. The army should have absolute loyalty in the Communist Party, and they should follow the orders of the president to the T. Now, sources within the government here see this as the Chinese president telling the army to listen to his orders. So is this the Chinese army following its own foreign policy? Was this a tactical level decision that they decided to come into Chumar? And this is in a way something that Chinese army has been doing all along. Whenever there's a visit from the Indian side to China or the Chinese side to India, to show that there is a dispute at the borders, there are incursions that take place. The Chinese president assuring Prime Minister Narendra Modi that this issue will be sorted out in a peaceful manner, and then the Chinese government telling the army that follow instructions is very interesting. From what my sources tell me, there is no fear of war, there is no fear of tension. This is just a game of brinkmanship, and we just have to wait and see how quickly do the Chinese withdraw and how quickly is this amicably resolved.
Gaurav, maybe, just maybe, could this also be indicative of what is happening within the PLA? Because it's not really clear why the emphasis was made on absolute loyalty and to follow the orders to ensure a smooth chain of command.
You're spot on there. There is a turmoil even within the PLA, within the Chinese army. There are several top generals who are under investigation. Some have been booked for corruption. So there is jockeying for supremacy even within China. And the fact that President Xi Jinping heads the Central Military Commission, he's the chairman of the Central Military Commission. He's also the president of the country. So he's in a very, very powerful position. At the same time, he's now, very slowly asserting his power. So perhaps turmoil for a little longer, but sources see this getting amicably resolved in the times to come.
Let's have Uday Bhaskar, defense expert, who's joining us on the phone line to weigh in on this. Mr. Bhaskar, this really stern message coming from the Chinese president, because we've seen that since Xi acquired the image of China's most powerful leader, he's reshuffled military postings of generals loyal to him at the top and removed and prosecuted some top PLA generals for corruption. So is this a way, in a way, sort of him asserting his position, especially in the light of after his visit to India?
Yeah, I think one can make a reasonable conjecture that Mr. Xi Jinping, currently President of China and the Chairman of the CMC, the Central Military Commission, is trying to assert the control of the party over the military, the PLA. Now, this in itself is not new, because if you look at the history of China, there have been occasions in the past when the PLA, which has the gun, quote unquote, has been either chastised or advised by the party to remember the Mao dictum that it is the party that controls the gun and not the other way around. I think there is 2 points here, Sanjana, which merit some kind of introspection or review here in India.
Okay.
The fact that this particular admonition, as it were, is coming soon after Mr. Xi's visit to India.
Right.
And we are aware that we had the incursion by the PLA and what might be termed as a fairly assertive display of PLA intent at a time when Mr. Xi Jinping was actually in Gujarat. I think most people who have been observing this were very intrigued by this particular pattern.
Right.
And this is a question that's been asked repeatedly, that was Mr. Xi in the loop when this PLA decision was taken? So I think there is something happening, in terms of the relationship between the party and the military. And this is the inference that one can make at this stage.
Absolutely. Uday Bhaskar, defense expert, thank you so much for speaking with Headlines today, raising a very interesting and a pertinent point there. Remember, this is after Xi Jinping left India, and the light of Chinese incursions that this comment in fact comes in. And even as Prime Minister Modi is all set to leave for the US in a few days, Chinese troops are continuing to dare India in Ladakh. Now, this despite Modi sending out a tough message to Xi Jinping. Even after 2 weeks, PLA troops inside Indian territory showing no signs of withdrawing.